Hi everyone, it's me again. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get on here to do another video. Number one, I've had a cold. Hopefully I don't have that flu. And I went to Seattle for a while and I was visiting with family and had some enlightening moments there. That was kind of interesting. But anyhow, I'm still here enjoying the snow at the end of April, and I've been skiing almost daily. And so that's been really good for my mood. I've had some new people subscribe to my videos. Thanks. I assume that you guys have interest in Asperger's or you're affected by it yourself, I see, for some of you. And my trip to Seattle made me really realize how just awareness of this condition is so important. First, I can say that my father, I know he has it, but at his age of 70 years old, I don't think he's really grasped the fact that maybe he could have it. He's lived his life compensating for so many years, but he was very successful. And so, you know, when you see that you've been successful, even if maybe the way your personality is or the way you the way that you do things might, you know, how can I say it, you know, irritate the rest of the family sometimes, or you might be a little stubborn, then it's hard to realize that you have a problem. I think I'm not as good at shutting out well, I used to be so good at shutting out problems, but now I'm not as good at shutting out problems, and I've learned how to deal with them. And as I said, that's come out from when I, you know, realized that my children had AS. And so, for my example, I was in Washington, and my father might be diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and we went in as neuropsychologist after his neurologist already said, no, you don't have it, it's a mix of your medications. And when the neuropsychologist went over the test results for about 4 hours of testing that they did with my father, I realized that about everything that he mentioned was low or not up to par in a man in a baseline of his age. All these things he mentioned were symptoms of Asperger's. And so I explained to the neuropsych, I said, well, I've got multiple people in the family, my brother, 2 nephews, and myself, of course, and my children who have Asperger's. And could this be anything, have anything to do with it? And he says, what, your father having Asperger's? No. He says, I said, well, how would you explain the hereditary component? And he says, well, I would question who diagnosed you guys. You know, this guy wasn't believing me. I said, trust me, I've had very good psychologists diagnose me, not including my brothers who were, my brother who was diagnosed, and also his son at University of Washington. And he completely dismissed anything that had to do with the possibility that he could have missed that my father could have Asperger's syndrome. So now the question came up when I was in there. Number one, I felt like I wanted to jump through his window or punch him. Number two, I wanted to argue with him, but I guess there's no arguing with that. He looked at me and he didn't even believe it. And, you know, for someone to just look at you and say, well, and also what he said was, well, I've only met 2 adults with Asperger's syndrome, and it's incredibly hard to diagnose as an adult. And I'm just thinking, well, you know, as children we may have it, but it doesn't go away. So we're going to have lots of adults that have Asperger's syndrome. So I'm stuck in this place where I feel like my family's waking up to, you know, that this is something that runs in our family. And even one of my other nephews, my sister-in-law, is going to have him tested, and he's almost 17 years old, and she sees that it's important because he was diagnosed with ADD about 10 years ago. And so it's so hard to live with something where, especially as a woman or female, that people won't recognize it in you, and they expect you to live, you know, they expect you to be able to do everything. So an example, this whole last couple of weeks, I've had numerous breakdowns, not breakdowns to where, you know, I was throwing fits and screaming or yelling at people, but I had breakdowns to where I just couldn't function that well. Barely get the energy to keep my house clean, which it drives me nuts if things are out of order. But I could barely deal with my husband. I could barely communicate with him. Financial difficulties are overwhelming. My business is down 50%, and so we shut that business down, and so that's my loss of income right now. I'm unemployed and trying to get on disability because I have tried everything, and yes, I look normal. Maybe if someone had a writing career for me, I could do very well because that's my gift, but where I'm at right now, it's just not attainable to get out and get a job. I have 2 children with AS, one son, 3rd grade, 9 years old, and I can barely get him to do any work, and I can't get a school bus up where I live. So I have all these things coming at me that are very difficult, and I'm just trying not to have a breakdown to where I feel like I need to go away somewhere for a week, and see a psychiatrist, which is a whole nother thing. I mean, having Asperger's syndrome as an adult, just getting in to see a psychiatrist to talk about your medications seems almost impossible to me. So, and dealing with my mortgage, trying to get that lower through the Home Affordable Act that's going on, dealing with my business, dealing with commercial landlords, dealing with all sorts of issues, including a personal issue with a friend that I had. It's absolutely been almost impossible.